We are a few minutes early. The Anunnaki. That's what's come to my mind. What do the Anunnaki want with Earth? And you can see some pictures up here. You've got the famous Anunnaki. Let me get out of the way of it. This famous one that's right here. That's a very familiar one with the wings. You have the strand of DNA. It just goes around and around. You got the Earth. And then over here, we've got beneath me the continents, the individual countries and things like that. So what do the Anunnaki want with Earth? And have they been here before? Obviously, there is talk that the Anunnaki have been here before. There's a lot of documentation about it. You can see it's like etched in stone, more or less. And we're just a few moments early, just a tad bit. I'm gonna make sure I'm over here. If I'm on a live video, I thought I pressed it. I really do. Oh, I am live. We got 59 people watching, and that's great. Hello, everyone. Hello, Apple Brooks, honey. You all, I thought I can't sit here for this long. I really can't. Yeah, grand evening. We will find out what they want when they show up. And there are some. Look, okay, yeah, I got to see that on my head. I got to get rid of that filter on my head because it makes it look like that. So out goes the filter on me. It's going to be missing because it makes my head look gray. Okay, it's gone. Now let's see what happens when I do this. Okay, the filter is gone. Aloha, Komodo dragon. Hello. I want to make sure I have enough light on me. It looks like I've got enough light, even with the screen as dark as it is. The Anunnaki, the most infamous species, more or less, really, like kings and queens and all of that kind of stuff. Hello there, William. Yeah, hello, you all. We got 1 minute until story time with Gina, but I came on here a tad bit early, like 4 minutes. I thought I'm not gonna sit here and wait. I'm not. Multi-dimensional being. What if we are multi-dimensional beings? There may be some who are multi-dimensional beings. There really may. Yeah. It's 8:30. Now it's time for the story time, and you can see what do the Anunnaki want with Earth. It is said that they created the human race, according to some theories. So let's come on over here, you all. Welcome. Yes, I'm a digital hologram. That's what they say we are, a digital hologram. But is it the truth? No, I don't know. I really don't know. I know when you look at yourself on the computer, you are digitalized now, when you didn't used to be digitalized, which is kind of strange. It is. Let me. I need to put myself in a different spot on here when I read because it doesn't look too nice when I'm reading. Let's see if I can get over here. What do the Anunnaki want with Earth? And this is from Anunnaki.org is what it is. Yeah, that's right. We got it. It's history. So we're doing a little bit of history, which is really kind of great. It is. If you have been reading up on the Anunnaki, you are probably noticed that we spend most of our time trying to understand who and what the Anunnaki are. That is understandable. Who and what are the big questions with many facets and plenty of mysteries to plumb. And it takes quite a lot of time and effort to piece together the answers, you all. So this sounds pretty interesting. It does. So let's look at this. Oh, that looks really pretty, you all. But We see an Anunnaki up there at the top. We see people with things around their hands and around their neck. Does this mean they did a slave race? I don't know. I don't know. Some kind of a... It's really wild. But as any journalist knows, or anyone who has ever learned about the journalism in school, the 5 big questions with any story are... Yeah, sometimes you got to go out and then you got to come back in for it to get to work. So we want to know who, what, where, when, and why. We spend so much time trying to figure out who they are and what they are that we don't spend a lot of time about talking why they were or are here and why they may decide to return. And if you think about it, it's quite curious because it isn't exactly as if Earth is brimming with cosmic significance, at least not insofar as we know true. It could be, but it doesn't take a lot of imagination to reckon this is just one tiny planet in a universe teeming with life. If you're just tuning in, this is Story Time with Gina. That's right, we came on here 4 minutes early, so we have now been like 7 minutes into this video right here. Those who from heaven to earth came, from the Nibiru to the earth. Zechariah Stitchin. Yeah, I like to watch him. Let's focus on the question. Why? Why did the Anunnaki come here in ancient times? And what do they want from us? What is likely to happen when they do eventually return in mass? And they do mean mass when they turn in mass. Well, that's it's a lot of ships. Sometimes I wonder, but not too often, but sometimes I wonder if these are part of the Anunnaki ships. I just call them light ships right here, but they started coming in, or from popping through the other dimension, and then they started showing up by the thousands and thousands of them. There were so many that were coming through, you couldn't count them all. You couldn't. So let me put this back to me. If you're just tuning in, it's hard to answer the question as well because the resources we have are so limited at this point as to why did the Anunnaki come here in ancient times and what do they want from us and what is likely to happen when they do return in mass. There's a lot of individuals who claim to know something about the Anunnaki, maybe sometimes from a personal experience. You will even meet people who claim to be Anunnaki. Now, this is true. Have you all ever met an Anunnaki? If you're just tuning in, have you met the Anunnaki or Anunnaki person, or do you claim to be one of the Anunnaki? Now, I've never heard someone... I've heard people claim to be reptilian, and I've heard people claim to be Anunnaki. And I've not heard anybody claim to be a gray. I haven't. Have you? Or any of the other. I'm a praying mantis, or I'm an insectoid. I'm a Sasquatch. Any of that. We all have Anunnaki DNA in us. It's true. You bet they're in your family because your grandfather was over 8 feet tall. That's pretty tall. It really is. Let me... Got it to me. I'm going to go back to this right here. Back to the screen. So we've got it right here. You will meet people who claim to be Anunnaki. Some of them are, but for the sake of this article, we are going to stick with the more traditional and or published resources. Hello, Mary Brett. What does mythology say about the motives of the Anunnaki? Well, I don't really know what they say about the motives in the Anunnaki. This is pretty neat, you all. Looks like it's etched in stone. Looks like there's like writing up there. Does that look like there's writing up here, even though we can't tell it? I'm sure it was something etched in stone. Look how detailed and fine it is. You know what this reminds me of? Back in the biblical times, they would do this too. It's like that. The Anunnaki. It's interesting. I'm writing this article with the assumption that you already have a pretty solid understanding of who and what the Anunnaki are. If you don't, just pursue the articles on our site for a while and you will figure out their basics. Shalom, Yahshua Yisrael. Good evening, World Weather Authority. The summer version is this. The theory goes that the ancient deities of Babylonian and Sumerian mythology, the Anunnaki, actually did exist, but they were not gods. They were ancient aliens visiting from a planet called Nibiru. As the ancients lacked the language to talk about other planets and species, they referred to these beings as deities. It's, referred to them as deities. Now the Anunnaki, in ancient lore, played many roles in relation to humanity and the greater universe, but one of those roles was as our creators. Essentially, maintaining creation was a lot of work. The gods grew fatigued with all the chores of existence, and some of them went on strike. Obviously, this would have been a disaster, so a solution had to be found. If you're just tuning in, we're reading about the Anunnaki. There are people who claim to be Anunnaki. I haven't really ran into anybody who claimed to have met an Anunnaki. I've heard people claim to be reptilians, but this is one of the theories that are out there concerning the Anunnaki. One of the Anunnaki, Enlil, said he could end the strike, but in turn the gods must name him their supreme ruler. So he came up with the idea of creating a labor force of inferior beings. Remember that one guy from the World Economic Forum, useless eaters? Apparently Enlil either could not do this on his own or did not want to, so he had a chat with Antu, the mother of his half-brother Enki. Enki was sleeping through the entire affair and apparently was highly suggestible in this state. His mother whispered the following suggestion in his head, given to her by Enlil. "O my son, arise from thy bed, from thy slumber, work what is wise, fashion servants for the gods, may they produce their bread." Waking up, Enki thought he had a brilliant idea and suggested to the gods that they create a race of slaves. Everyone agreed, so he got busy with a mixture of ore. Is this supposed to say iron and clay right here? Because I think AI wrote this. With a mixture of clay and blood from a slaughtered god. Working this together, he managed to create the first human beings. Now, this is one of the theories of creation right here from a different point of view. If you didn't hear about that before, and if you've only heard about the biblical account, which that's all I really heard about until 2018, till I came into this arena. I was totally shocked to hear about Enki and Enlil. I thought, oh my gosh, that's blasphemy. Oh, it really shocked me. It really did, because I had my mind growing up. It was all in church. There was one God. That was it. There was no other person. There was no other history. There was no Sumerians. There was nothing, because I knew nothing of it. I didn't. So I'm not so shocked no more. All right, so Enki thought he had a brilliant idea, and he created a race of slaves, and he managed to create the first human beings. I think a A cautionary note is due here, however. It is way too easy to essentialize all the Anunnaki as evil, cold, heartless, sadistic creatures. But Anunnaki are individuals just like us. Some of them have different motives and personalities. Enki was actually reasonably friendly and benevolent toward humanity, even goes so far as to save the human race from Enlil's flood. So with the Anunnaki return, we can expect some complexity in their interactions with us. So what do modern theorists believe? An examination of mythology gives us a pretty good idea of the attitude of the Anunnaki toward humanity, but none of it answers the basic questions. Why Earth? Why here? And we know they needed a labor, but for what, you all? So we're looking at the Anunnaki. If you haven't had any, read anything about it, or you have, this is a little bit more to add to it, which is, it's okay. It's good to know, because if they return, you want to know a little bit more about them, whether it's from one different individual or school of thought, or a lot of different schools of thoughts. But if they return, you want to know. You really do. You want to get some kind of idea. Those who believe the Anunnaki may have been alien visitors have various theories, but the most prominent one was produced by writer Zecharia Sitchin, one of the most well-known ancient astronaut theorists. According to him, the Anunnaki came to Earth to mine gold, but not for the reasons that we typically do. Hello, Sashameen. They didn't need it to craft fine jewelry. They needed it to save their planet Nibiru. In his 1976 book, The 12th Planet, NASA said at one time they found the 12th planet. They did. And something happened, and then oh no, we didn't. We didn't. Did they or didn't they? So this is what Zecharia Sitchin wrote. On Nibiru, planet X of our solar system, the problem was the opposite one: loss of internally generated heat due to a dwindling atmosphere brought about by natural causes and nuclear wars. Nibiru scientists, I wrote, concluded that the only way to save life on their planet was to create a shield of gold particles in their upper atmosphere. See, Priscico, there's a relationship between solar energy and gold. Yes. Downloading and recalculating. Thank you, Gina. Trust God only. If you explore Sitchin's works, you will find a complex timeline of events surrounding the mining process before the Anunnaki end up abandoning the planet. Over the course of hundreds of thousands of years, a complex drama plays out with many different characters, who we know today as Sumerian and Egyptian deities. In reality, most of these players were likely Anunnaki mining management. This having been said, the Anunnaki did seem to be curiously inefficient. You would think that an advanced race would quickly determine the location of gold and extract it with ease from the earth. But apparently it took hundreds of thousands of years, and they obviously left a fair amount behind. It should also be mentioned as well that it seems that some of the Anunnaki may have mated with human women during this time, and they produce hybrid offspring. You can read more about this on the feature of the Nephilim. So the Anunnaki, and they mated with the human women, and then their offspring became the Nephilim. So now we have identified at least 4 resources that the Anunnaki value in which we possess. The gold. The Anunnaki require this to protect Nibiru from destruction. This is a basic survival need. Labor. The Anunnaki don't enjoy labor. They prefer to foist it off on an inferior race. Energy. There are many suggestions that the Anunnaki lean toward rather cruel dispositions. Perhaps the energy of human suffering provides them with something they need or want. You all, what does that mean? The energy of human suffering? They like that energy? That's really, yeah. Companionship. Okay, Lush, Mickey Martin, honey, thank you. Yes. The companionship. Clearly there is something about Earth women that intrigues the Anunnaki. It could also be that there were aspects of dealing with humanity that at least some of them enjoyed overall. There were even periods of peace while they reigned on the earth, and some of them even gave power to human kings. Hello. If you're just tuning in, we're talking about these Anunnaki, and I don't know the title of this, but it's okay, you all. What do the Anunnaki want with the earth? Okay, we see it. We got it. We do have it. Okay, so why are they coming back? The last question is, of course, the hardest answer. Numerous indications point toward the imminent return of the Anunnaki. They could be coming back for more gold, for human slaves or companions, or simply to amuse themselves at our expense. It is also possible that they are returning for the ones they left behind. Many believe that the Anunnaki still walk among us today as reptilian alien shapeshifters. Do any of you believe that there are Anunnakis, are there reptilian alien shapeshifters? Hello, Marcy. Yeah. Could they be the reptilian shapeshifters, you all? The alien shapeshifters, the reptilians, the Anunnaki walking on the earth. Absolutely. They left their families behind and there was a war going on. The seraphim. Hello there, CS from Arizona. They're mining that tail on the way of Tiamat. Humanity coming of age. Maybe alchemy knowledge was taken away by some of them. They look like dragons, the Anunnaki. They are us and we are them. Well, they say that we used to have a tail. Some may have a tail, but there is an indent. That's like saying Africa is America. Elevate humanity. You heard the Anunnaki are the modern day black people. I've heard that also. Yeah. So another possibility is that they cannot help but come back because Nibiru's natural orbit routinely brings them within the reach of Earth. What will happen when that day arrives? Will it mean a war for the possession of the planet? Will Earth be destroyed by a new round of flooding brought on by the gravitational force of Nibiru? Will we be brought back to Nibiru as slaves? Or will we find a way to coexist with the Anunnaki? Just those two sentences alone. Just think about that. When that day arrives, this is written as if it's going to happen. What will happen when that day arrives? Will it mean war for possession of the planet? Okay. Will we be brought back to Nibiru as slaves? So if you think about it from a biblical point of view, you're going to worship the beast. Or will we find a way to coexist with the Anunnaki? Well, if you think of the Elon Musk, he wants to have a symbiotic relationship with AI, but I don't think AI or robots are the Anunnaki. Only time will tell. Whatever the case may be, the more we can learn about the Anunnaki and their motives, the more prepared we will be for that fateful day when they do come back into our orbit. So let's find out these Nephilim, because the Anunnaki may have mated with human women during this time with their off-bred spring. Boom. Oh my gosh. So you all, we got to look at the Nephilim. That's right. We can do it. We're going to look at it. They look like giants. Oh my gosh. Well, they would fit the... Why would they make old paintings like that? Really, that's kind of interesting. An old painting. If you have an interest in the more esoteric aspects of Judeo-Christian lore, then you may have some passing familiarity with the Nephilim, but you probably have more questions than answers. Look at that. How tall they were. The giants. Massive giants. Were the Nephilim the fallen angels? Were they the children of the fallen angels? Were they entirely human? Almost any discussion about the Nephilim is going to be rife with controversy and confusion, and for good reason. Nobody knows who the Nephilim really were. How can we break down a complicated topic? Let's start by looking at references to the Nephilim in the Bible and the book of Enoch. Then we can explore some of the different theories that scholars, philologists, and theologians have proposed. Among these hypotheses is one which should particularly intrigue you. It is possible that the Nephilim were none other than the Anunnaki. What does the word Nephilim mean? Unfortunately, the etymology of the word is complicated and quite nebulous. Nobody is totally sure of the root word, but it may be derived from the Hebrew verbal root nephil, for fall. Oh, wow. So Hebrew for fall. If you're just tuning in, we're talking about the Anunnaki when they return, and now we have ended up into the Nephilim, which it goes with them. What does that indicate about the Nephilim? No one is sure. The Anglican cleric Robert Baker Girdstone asserted it. It should be interpreted as those who cause others to fall down. This could be a literal giant reference or a figurative demonic reference. Professor Ronald Hindle thinks it means the ones who have fallen. The Nephilim in the Bible. Let's go over the actual scriptural reference to the Nephilim in the Hebrew Bible. Genesis 6, 1 through 4. Just before the flood story. The Nephilim were in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, and they bore children to them. The same were the mighty men that were of old, the men of renown. Numbers 13, 32 through 33. The 12 spies report seeing giants in Canaan. 33. And there we saw the Nephilim, the sons of Anak, like Anunnaki, who come of the Nephilim, and we were in our own sight as grasshoppers, and so were in their sights grasshoppers. You all, they must have been absolutely enormous to compare yourself as a grasshopper to the giant Nephilim. That means those Nephilim must have been around 40, 50, 60 feet tall. It really does. I wonder how tall they truly were. How tall were the Nephilim? How tall were the Nephilim? We've seen some skulls of great big gigantic beings. Let's say 60 feet tall. I just want to throw it in there. I really do. They're mysterious beings or people in the Hebrew Bible described as being large and strong. It's loosely translated as giants in most translations. but left untranslated. They interpret them as hybrids, the sons of the fallen angels. I don't think it's really going to say how tall were they, but it's okay. Although here's some were up to 30 feet tall. Some of the giants, the Anakim Nephilim giants, standing up to 30 feet tall. But there's no official records. If there was an official record, they got rid of the official record, but that's okay. Let's read it. I like that they got pictures here that we can look at. I really do. The following passage describes the Nephilim as descendants of the Watchers, the fallen angels. And it came to pass, when the children of men had multiplied, that in those days were born unto them beautiful and comely daughters. And the angels, the children of heaven, saw and lusted after them, and said to one another, Come, let us choose us wives from among the children of men, and beget us children. And Simjaza, who was their leader, this must be from the book of Enoch, he said unto them, I fear ye will not indeed agree to do this deed, and I alone shall have to pay the penalty of a great sin. And they all answered him and said, Let us all swear an oath, and all bind ourselves by mutual imprecations, not to abandon this plan, but to do this thing. Then they swore all together, and bound themselves by mutual imprecations upon it. And they were in all 200, who descended in the days of Jared on the summit of Mount Hermon. And they called it Mount Hermon because they had sworn and bound themselves by a mutual imprecations upon it. Hello, Ulysses. So we have this angel with a sword, and it's got, how many wings has this got? It's got 1, 2, 3 sets of wings. I'm sure people saw them back in those days. So the passage, if you're just tuning in, we are reading about the Anunnaki, but then they had the Nephilim, because they went into the daughters of men and they mated and they bore the Nephilim is what they did. So let's get back over here, you all. This is kind of interesting. Then they took wives, each choosing for himself, whom they began to approach and with whom they cohabited, teaching them sorcery, incantations, and dividing of roots and trees. And the women conceiving brought forth giants. Well, I wonder how bad it hurt. You all, now let's think about that. If you are a woman and you've had childbirth, natural childbirth, and you have this giant angel mating with you, and you're going to give birth to a giant. Now, I don't know if the human body can do it unless those women were pretty big themselves. I really doubt it. It would probably kill you giving birth. It would. A psyop term for them. The giant of the Titans. Yeah, how could they do it? You know, it hurts so bad. The biggest baby I've ever heard of, maybe like 11 pounds or something. Could you imagine a 20-pound baby or even more? And you're maybe, I don't know, 5 foot 6 inches, maybe 6 feet. It's still going to hurt. It is. It is going to hurt. Yeah. It killed many women. Well, that wasn't very nice now, was it? I guess they just wanted the offspring. Yeah. All the women died. Let's hope we don't run into that again, having any Anunnaki coming, trying to mate with the women. You all, you might as well. You're not going to make it. You're not. That's right. That's awful, Susan Donahue. Their fathers traded them to the Anunnaki. It's not good. It's not. And the women, they brought forth the giants, whose stature was each 300 cubits. They devoured all which the labor of men produced. How tall is 300 cubits? Let's see Let's do how tall is 300 cubics. $105 feet. Is that what it is? 300 cubics. 450 feet. Wow, my goodness. 450 feet tall? You see that? Did they say cubics? They did. 300 cubics. Wow. Well, this is a cubic foot. Is it 450 feet. Am I calculating this wrong? Convert cubics to feet. 300 cubics to feet. 442 feet tall. That's right. They're not going to steal your mojo. They could shapeshift, Gina. Wow. So, you know how those, like that Devil's Tower in the West? Those trees that were enormous trees. Massively enormous. And then you have the giants. That's right. Now we know who cut down all those trees. The giant ancient trees. Giant ancient trees. It's like Paul Bunyan. Look at this right here. Prehistoric trees, the giant trees, the Devil's Tower. Have you all been there? Look how massive it is. Wow. That's real massive. Is that guy leaning against it? Look at the sequoias. They're massive. How big they are. Are these the sequoias? They probably wanted to count all the trees down. Look at that petrified wood. Giant prehistoric trees. Well, we have videos on this channel. Short videos that were uploads. It reminds me of Table Mountain. Table Mountain is a great big sawed down tree, right? Table Mountain, Cape Town, South Africa. Table Mountain, Cape Town, South Africa is ancient tree. It does look like it. Yeah. We got to get a good image of it. Because it does kind of sort of look like it when you look up close. Look how flat it is. It could have been a massive tree. It really could have been. You can't see the picture, Brenda, honey? Okay. It's fine. I mean, it's not fine. I hope you can see it now. So they were 400 and some odd feet tall. They devoured all which the labor of the men produced until it became impossible to feed them. And when they turned themselves against the men in order to devour them and began to injure birds, beasts, reptiles, and fishes, to eat their flesh one after another, and to drink their blood, their flesh one after the other. It seems that all those worldly arts of civilization came at quite a steep price. The essential implication is that the fallen angels enslaved humankind. They bewitched us with wonders and then worked us to death. Impiety increased, fornication multiplied, and they transgressed and corrupted all their ways. Amazarach taught all the sorcerers the dividers of roots. Armors taught the solution of sorcery. Barkiel taught the observers of the stars. Akibiel taught signs. Tamiel taught astronomy, and Asaradel taught the motion of the moon. And men, being destroyed, cried out, and their voice reached to heaven, you all. Totally up to heaven. So now we have seen scriptural passages, I think it's from the book of Enoch, We can talk about the popular interpretations, and there's two of them, two common theories. The Nephilims are descendant of the fallen angel fathers and mortal human mothers. In other words, a hybrid race. And the Nephilim are fully human. So they're going to look at an argument for each. The Nephilim are the hybrids. If you put stock in the book of Enoch, you pretty much have to accept that the Nephilim as hybrid children of mortal women and fallen angels. But if their mother died, then you don't even have a mother. It's just the men. I got to sit back, y'all. It makes my back kind of hurt. So the book is pretty clear and specific on this point. So why is there controversy? The angels are traditionally seen as sexless beings. So in theory, they should be incapable of procreation. Of course, we may not know all there is to know about the angels, and perhaps fallen angels are different. Maybe their sins reflected not just a change in their actions, but also a shift in their nature. All of this is a supposition, but there was likely quite a bit of that going on when the holy books were originally penned away. The Nephilim as humans. The other possibility is that the Nephilim were fully human. Let me do this. Giant humans may sound strange, but read the section just after this one on Goliath, and you will see there is already scientific precedent. If the Nephilim were human, most scholars believe that they may have represented the descendants of Seth. More specifically, they could have been the children of the sons of Seth and the daughters of Cain. The children of Seth were previously considered righteous, but they lost that status. They fell when they rebelled against God, and the daughters of Cain were never considered righteous. Look at Goliath. Was Goliath a Nephilim? We're reading about the Anunnaki, and somehow we got into the Nephilim, is what we've done. So we're going to look at this just a tad bit. You got him right there. We know what happened. This little bitty boy took a stone and hit him right in the middle of the forehead, and down he fell. That's right, and he wouldn't live anymore. Right between the eyes, you all. Boom. Go ahead and knock him down with your sling. The most obvious reference to a giant in the Bible that you remember from Sunday school is Goliath. Was Goliath a Nephilim? Probably not, considering the story of David and Goliath is supposed to take place after the Great Flood. As the flood supposedly wiped out everyone but Noah and his family, all the Nephilim should have perished. There are a couple alternate explanations. Maybe some Nephilim did survive somehow and made a return, and Goliath was one of them. Or maybe Goliath was just really tall human with bones of a human being larger than Goliath have been discovered. They have. Could the Nephilim be the Anunnaki or their descendants of creation? Hello. As I stated in the start of the discussion, there is one more possible explanation for the Nephilim, which should interest you greatly. They could be the Anunnaki. So who were the Anunnaki? Now we're going to talk about the Anunnaki again. This is perfect. Just to clarify, I want to take a moment to discuss who they were. I'm guessing if you are here reading this, you already know a lot about them, but I don't want you to make any assumptions. We see it look like a pine cone, the wings, and Marduk, the Anunnaki, Marduk god. So this is what this is. Oh my goodness, I feel really tired. It looks like he's got a watch on his hand, but it probably is like a bracelet or something right here. It could be. If this happens to be one of your first readings on the Anunnaki, then you should know that they represent the deities of the ancient Mesopotamians, Marduk, Enlil, etc. They were the gods who were worshipped by the Sumerians, Babylonians, Assyrians, and the Akkadians. Many people today believe that the Anunnaki may have actually been reptilian alien visitors who came to the earth. This view was popularized by Zecharia Sitchin as well as David Icke. So, when I talk about the Anunnaki in this article, I'm referring primarily to the original Ra as a Sumerian deity. If you are a believer in the reptilian theory, you can extend the connections here to encompass the modern mythology of ancient astronauts. The Great Flood connection, you all. I want to get a drink of water. So you all can take a 1 minute to get you a drink of water, go to the bathroom, take a 1 minute, whatever it's called, a 1 minute break. 1 minute. All right. I'm sure this was kind of short break. Oh, that's what it's called. It's called an intermission. Hello, Indian men only. I haven't seen you in a long time. It's nice to see you. It is. Love you too. So look how tall this angelic-like being is on top of the ark. It looked like there is some kind of leviathan or something in the water also. Yeah. The Great Flood connection. Let's get back to talking about the Nephilim. You may have already started to figure this out. If you have read up on the Anunnaki, you know that the flood story is woven into their myths in a couple of different respects, you all. Intermission is over. It is. Yeah, but you take your time, because I'll still be on here, and you can even watch it as a repeat. You can. The Great Flood plays a prominent role in Sumerian mythology. You may also know about the planet Nibiru. Those who believe that the Anunnaki are reptilians from space believe that Nibiru is their home world of the Sumerian gods. Nibiru is, in theory, part of our solar system, but it has a very long orbit and rarely comes close to Earth. The last time that it did, gravitational effects of its presence caused the Great Flood. In Judeo-Christian lore, the story about the Nephilim takes place right before the Great Flood. The Book of Jubilees actually states in 7:21 through 25 that God flooded the earth specifically to get rid of the Nephilim. Noah was a giant. For owing to these three things came the flood upon the earth, namely, owing to the fornication wherein the watchers against the law of their ordinances went a whoring after the daughters of men, and took themselves wives of all which they choose. They got a harem going, you all. And they made the beginning of uncleanliness. It's clear that the Nibiru story and the biblical story are both referring to the same cataclysmic event. It is. The stories may differ as to the cause of the flood, but both narratives connect to a mysterious race of powerful beings which use humanity for its own ends. It seems likely that they are referencing the same race of overlords, you all. The Anunnaki overlords. This might be a long video. Well, we're almost halfway through it if you're just tuning in. Thank you for joining it. So this is the Anunnaki, the Nephilim, and now we're back to the Anunnaki. We can also look to the Sumerian lore for even more insight into the Nephilim and the Anunnaki. According to the scholar J.C. Greenfield, it is possible that the Nephilim story in the Bible was actually derived from the Sumerian mythology. Judeo-Christian mythology borrows liberally from pagan myth, so this would not be a surprise. In particular, Greenfield points toward the story of Apkallu. The Apkallu were the 7 demigods created by Enki, one of the chief Sumerian gods. You may also hear of Enki referred to as A, which is the name he was later given in Babylonian and Akkadian mythology. So he's got a bird-like beak like that. Nimrod. Oh my goodness. These 7 demigods were Uana, who finished the plans for heaven and earth; Uanduga, who was endowed with comprehensive intelligence; Inamaduga, who was allotted a good fate; Inamagalema, who was born in a house; Inamabuluga, who grew up on pasture land; and Inlida, the conjurer of the city of Eridu; and Utaabazu, who ascended to heaven. These beings were sent by Enki to teach human beings the arts of civilization, agriculture, writing, building, and so on. You may recall this is a direct parallel to the book of Enoch, where the fallen angels taught humanity about astronomy, astrology, and so forth. Just as things turned sour in the book of Enoch, they went badly in the Sumerian lore as well. Interesting, though, this is where the timeline starts to get murky. In biblical lore, the Nephilim had angered God before the flood, which was one of the reasons the Great Flood happened in the first place. In the Sumerian story, if you're just tuning in, events took place in a different order, but it's easy to imagine that the players were the same. At some point after the flood, 4 Apkallu human hybrids make an entrance. Nungala Paringalemdum, Piri Galunanugol, Piri Galasabusu, and Lunana. This indicates that Apkallu and humans were capable of interbreeding, a parallel to the idea that the fallen angels and humans were capable of interbreeding. To top this off, these human hybrids, the Apkallu hybrids, infuriated the gods. Here's another link to a Bible story. This is why so many scholars believe the Nephilim myth was directly derived from the story of Apkallu. It could be that the Nephilim represent the Apkallu themselves, or more likely, their hybrid descendants. Do not forget in biblical lore that the Nephilim are the children of the fallen angels, not the fallen angels. Let's take a second to clarify. If anything, the Nephilim can probably be equated to the Apkallu human hybrids, not the Anunnaki themselves. Remember, the Anunnaki were gods, the Apkallu were demigods. Now we have 3 versions of one story. Now that we have stepped in close to look at all the details, let's take a few steps back and take a look at the big picture. Stories about the Nephilim are vague at best, but we now know we have 3 rough versions of a single set of events. The Judeo-Christian story, splicing together the information from Genesis, Numbers, and the Book of Enoch, and Jubilees, we get the following basic story. The Nephilim were either entirely human giants, or they were a race of hybrids spawned by human women and fallen angels. The fallen angels and or the Nephilim gave many arts of civilization to humankind. Nonetheless, men were destroyed by this interference, and in his wrath, God flooded the world to wipe out the Nephilim and humanity, save Noah and his family. The Sumerian story. One of the Anunnaki, Enki, created the 7 demigods to help civilize mankind. These demigods were known as the Apkallu. The Apkallu and human beings were capable of interbreeding. After the Great Flood, 4 human Apkallu hybrids appeared who evoked the wrath of the gods. Then comes the reptilians, you all. Reptilian theorists believe that the Anunnaki were real, literal beings, and moreover, that they came from space. Their home world is an undiscovered planet called Nibiru in a long orbit around the Earth. When they came to the Earth, they brought many of the arts of civilization, but like the fallen angels of Christian lore, they used human beings for their own purposes. The gravitational tides caused by their planet's close proximity to ours created the Great Flood. Some of the reptilians survived on Earth, but Nibiru moved along its rotation, and the next time it returns, we can expect further cataclysms. The remaining reptilians have gone into hiding or live among us as human shapeshifters. Like the Apkallu, and the fallen angels that spawned the Nephilim, they are capable of interbreeding with humans. This means that some of their descendants could be real-life Nephilim. And what do Nephilim look like today? Probably just like us. There are many people who believe that their religions are literal truth, perfect in every detail. But think for a moment about the way the stories are told. There's no such thing as an objectivity in storytelling. There is a hard lesson that every journalist learns. Even something as simple as deciding where to point a video camera when filming a documentary can paint a story with a certain hue. Some information receives a great deal of focus while other information gets left out altogether. So which story about the Nephilim is true? It could be that all of them are true in some respects and false in others. In other words, none of the stories are the truth. They are simply different versions and interpretations of the same set of events. That set of events is the actual truth. But as none of us have the benefit of witnessing these events directly, we are stuck trying to put the pieces together. The pieces we have are biased and incomplete. Each of these stories were transcribed through a certain cultural lens. The understanding of the authors was limited by their knowledge of the universe at that time, which limited their language as well. So were the Nephilim the children of the fallen angels, the gods, the aliens? Maybe the simple answer is yes. Who says that there is one right answer here? What we call gods or aliens or angels is simply a reflection of our cultural lenses of understanding. The real Nephilim were simply whatever they were, or whatever they are, if their descendants of the Nephilim today are still among us. They might not describe themselves as gods, angels, or aliens at all. So if we want to become like gods or angels, the best thing we can do is keep an open mind. That is how we learn to go beyond our existing definitions and limitations. That and avoiding literal, immutable interpretation is the key to learning more about our place in the universe. If there is a place for us among the gods and the stars, we will need to evolve a fluid of understanding. So this is, let me put this back to me. I'm about ready to fall asleep. What do the Anunnaki want with Earth? And you can see that they're going to come back for their offspring, more or less. They use the humans as slaves to mine for gold so they can have gold dust in their atmosphere. Some likes the energy from the humans. Some, I guess, wanted to have some babies with the humans, some big gigantic babies, Nephilim, which could get to around, I think they said 442 feet tall, which is quite tall. So I am going to go, y'all. I can barely hold my eyes open. So with that being said, thank you. And thank you, moderators. Thank you all for joining this live stream. Thank you for your comments. And thank you to the subscribers. And with that being said, hello, wherever you are in any part of the world. Hello. From my heart to yours, love you. Have a wonderful rest of your evening, you all. Thank you so much for tuning in. Good night.